Yo guys, Chris here of 1980 Something Co. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to stretch your tees without damaging them. So when I say stretch your tees, I'm not talking about turning a youth extra small t-shirt to a 2XL. No. We don't do that. It could ruin the graphic, mess up the integrity of the shirt. I don't like doing that. What I mean by that is, say you find a t-shirt, right? It's tagged XL, but because of years of washing and drying, it now fits like a medium. So what I'm going to show you how to do is how to stretch that shirt back to its original measurements. See, a large, when it was originally made, was probably like a 22 pit to pit, 31 top to bottom. When you find them, they're about 21 pit to pit, 28 top to bottom. So how did they shrink like that? Like I said, it's just over the years, washing, drying, those threads really just tend to lock up and shrink up. But in that is also our solution, because now all we have to do is relax those fibers to get the shirt to be back to its original measurements when it was originally purchased. It has the potential to be a 22 pit to pit, 31 top to bottom, or even a 23 pit to pit, 30 top to bottom. So I'm going to show you how to get it back to those measurements, or at least to a size that you can actually wear. All right, so first things first, let's measure out our tees. 20.5 by 29. Mario is a 22 by 27. You need to get that length longer. Curious George is 22.5 by 26. That's no bueno. So we're gonna dip these in water, stretch them, and then hang dry them. 22 by 26.5 on the Coyote. So these shirts are shrunk. The fibers are tight. So how do you loosen them? Well, we're gonna use water, and then we're gonna give them a stretch while they're wet. 24 pit to pit, 27 top to bottom on the Underdog. All right, now that we have our original measurements for these pieces, we're gonna dip them in water to loosen the shirt up, make the fabric heavy, and once they're wet, we're gonna give them a nice stretch. So these are the stretches that I'll be doing. We're gonna be stretching the shirt lengthwise then I'm gonna show you one more stretch you can do to add more inches to the length if you need it. The first stretch that I'm gonna show you is the pit to pit stretch. So basically what I do is I hold the shirt upside down, I put my arms in there, almost like I'm gonna put the shirt on, but once my arms are in like this, then I just do the pit to pit stretch. And unless you have like a delicate shirt, you could go pretty hard on that. So that's your pit to pit stretch. And so you can see how my arms are moving inside. They're going like that when I'm inside the shirt. So when you do that wet, you're gonna get a nice pit to pit stretch on here, even if you do it dry. So if you have a shirt that doesn't need a crazy stretch to it, you can do it dry. But if you have a shirt that's really strong, I'm showing you the best way you can do it, just dip it in water. So you got your pit to pit stretch, and now we're gonna do our length stretch. For the length, hold the shirt like this, then it almost as if you're tilting it on its side. There it is, now the shirt is sideways. And what you wanna do is you wanna imagine the shirt is in columns, right? Fist width columns. And the reason I say that is because we're gonna grab the first column with our fist and the bottom of that first column with our other fist, right? And then do what I call an accordion stretch. Doesn't it look like I'm playing the accordion? And then go column by column. So after we did that one, go to the next column. Go to the next column. Now it's important when you're doing this stretch that you grab from the bottom hem, you grab both the front and the back of the shirt. Because if you grab one side, you're gonna end up with a longer side on the front or a longer side in the back. So grab both the front and the back of the shirt on the bottom hem. When you get to the collar area at the top of your column up here, make sure you grab the entire collar in your fist. Don't just grab one side, because same thing, you're gonna stretch the collar out. Ball up the entire collar in your fist and then do your accordion stretch. So there you go. So far we've done the pit to pit stretch, the length stretch, aka the accordion stretch, and now the third stretch I'm gonna show you, this is bonus if you want more inches out of the length, is we're gonna stretch this area here, the sleeve opening, so that if this becomes longer, then you get more length in the t-shirt. So the way we're gonna do that is we're gonna put both of our hands through into the sleeve. So now I have both of my hands in here in this is the sleeve, and I'm just gonna do kind of like the same thing we did for the pit to pit stretch, but in the sleeve. Go to the other sleeve. There you go. You know, with more inches coming down here on the sleeves, it gives you more inches in the length of the t-shirt. Today I'll only be using two of the stretches, which are the pit to pit stretch and the length stretch, the accordion stretch. Those two stretches while the t-shirt is wet are really gonna loosen up those fibers, wake it up to its original measurements, and get the shirt feeling nice and loose. And then all you gotta do is hang dry it. So let's show you. I think that's enough water, just enough water to submerge the tees in. That might even be too much. We just wanted a little puddle that we could dip these tees in, you know? All right, so here we go. Here's the first tee. Dip it in, get it nice and soaked. Already it feels heavier. Get up in here and do a pit to pit stretch on it. Just stretch that pitch out, that pit to pit area out. There you go. Don't want to touch the collar. Just want to stretch out that pit to pit area. Stretch on the length, section by section. And now we have, now I believe this is a size large shirt. This is probably how it looked when it was first purchased. So now that we got that length out of it, we got that width out of it, hang that up to dry, baby. Next tee, the pit to pit on this one is good. It's that top to bottom that we need to increase. So I'm gonna hit it like that. This time I'm gonna actually give it a little bit of a ring out so it's not so heavy. And now we're gonna do that pit to pit, that length stretch, because the pit to pit is really good on this. Prepare to get a little bit wet if you do this. Now what happens is, like, once this dries, it is gonna shrivel up, even if we do hang dry it. So you want the most amount of stretch you can get out of this as possible. Yeah, that thing's looking good. That is the length that I want this to be. Oh, there we go. That's what I want. Next up, we have this animal tee. This one is just kind of smaller all around, pit to pit and length. I find like the key measurements that people want are at least a 23 pit to pit, 23 inch pit to pit width, and for length, 29. Once you start getting into that 28 and a half, 28 measurement, it kind of turns buyers off. Don't ask me why, we're not all the same size. I think because vintage has a reselling factor to it. And people want a shirt that is more universal as far as measurements go. So they could attract the most amount of buyers for that piece if they decide to sell it. Same thing, we're gonna do the same thing on this one and just see how these do. Let's give it another pit to pit. Really just wake these fibers up, you know? We really want to just wake them up to their original specs. See that? Look how much that shirt is stretching. It was not stretching like this when it was dry. Those fibers are tight, man. When you do this dry, you take, every time you stretch the length, you take away from the width, and vice versa. When you do this wet, you just really stretch the whole shirt out. There we go. Now we got them all hanging on the dryer rack, and we'll check back on them in a few hours once they've dried and see if there's been any change to the measurements. All right, time to check out how much these have stretched with just water and a little elbow grease. So the Wile E. Coyote is now a 22 with a 29 and a half length. Mario is I think this one was like around a 28 length, right? It was like a 23 by 28. So the pit to pit is 22, but the length is now 29, which is exactly where we need this to be. That's perfect. That's a good amount of stretch. A Speed Racer, I believe, was like 21 by 28. So these are all I could tell, a little shrunk in the pit to pit, 21 by now almost 30. So this one's a 29 and a half, a little more than a 29 and a half But I wanted to stretch it out lengthwise anyway, because once we get in here, like pit to pit is one of the easiest things to stretch. So right now that I just did that, just with that, I made it into a 22. Oh shoot. 20, a little over, 22 and a half pit to pit, and the length is now still a 29. You know, you just want to wake those fibers up. There's another one that I wanted to make sure we got the most out of the measurements for. A 23 pit to pit, that's good, with a 29 and a half top to bottom on this Curious George. Dude, this thing was like 27 and a half top to bottom, I think. This underdog had a good pit to pit, but it was the length that was lacking. This thing looks nice and big now. Now it is a 23 pit to pit, 30 length. So we definitely got some good inches out of that one. All right, and that's it, y'all. That's a safe and easy way to stretch out your shirts without damaging them. That last shirt at the end there, it lost an inch in the pit to pit. I did notice that. But it was already a good pit to pit. It was 24 inches. It lost an inch, so it was 23 inches. Most people can rock and prefer a 23 inch pit to pit. But if you find that you lose an inch in a direction that you didn't want to lose it, all you got to do is keep doing your stretches, really relax those fibers, and you should get your inches back. I'm Chris Fernandez of 1980 Something Co. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to hit me up on Instagram. If you guys like today's video, please subscribe and send this out to somebody that you think will make good use of it as well. All right, y'all. Peace.